I stepped over a paper plate flattened beneath someone else's heel, someone who didn't belong here. Grease had bled into the carpet like an open sore. My key hung from the lock behind me, turning in slow disbelief as if it couldn't quite accept what it had opened. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Perfume tangled with frying oil. An excess of bodies compressed into a space that made each breath a little too loud. There was a cheap plastic banner, glitter smeared across white letters. Family means forever. They moved through the house oblivious. They never saw me. I stood at the perimeter of a celebration that had taken residence inside my rib cage, a party they'd thrown after cutting me out. They filled my rooms with wine and gossip and voices that belonged to strangers pretending to be family. 92 people. Faces I knew but misread, smiles that had the wrong angles. She laughed. My wife wore my sweater, barefoot as she always did when she cooked. My mother clapped in time. My father poured whiskey for an uncle who once told me my silence made me untrustworthy. I didn't make a scene. I did something quieter. I left my shoes by the door where no one thought to look and climbed the stairs with my bag slung over one shoulder. I passed the bathroom where someone had strung toilet paper like a careless trail. The study was dark and smelled like dust and another thing I couldn't name. Loneliness, maybe. I closed the door, sat on the floor and opened my notebook. Not rage. Not grief. A stillness that sits on the edge of cracking. Day 1. There were 92. I hadn't planned to be home. The workshop had been extended by a last-minute change. Fluorescent lights and perfunctory smiles had frayed my nerves. The ache behind my eyes wouldn't go away. So I took a red-eye, a taxi from the airport, walked up the drive expecting quiet, expecting her. Not a crowd of family who hadn't spoken in years, the same relatives who slipped away from our engagement and resurfaced only when the phone rang. I became a shadow at my own table, the odd figure in the frames gilded with gold. They sat in my chair but blurred my name from the place cards as if erasing a piece of me could make the picture hold. They told me later it was a surprise. They said they meant to invite me the next morning but the moment was organic. I stopped answering messages and watched them from the upstairs window as they came and went. Laughter like seagulls. Paper lanterns snagged on the yard's branches. She wore my grandmother's locket, the one I had tied in muslin and hidden in a drawer. They slept in my bed, used my razor, unfolded their histories into the corners I'd left intentionally empty. I have a photograph I once hid behind the garage fuse box. Me at 7, face smeared with mud. A tear caught mid-fall and my father's arm frozen in the motion of stopping before the strike. That pause, the electricity of pain before it lands, lives in that picture. I look at it now and wonder if he ever knew the child was already learning what it meant to be invisible in plain daylight. Silence took on its own dialect. Day 8. She left a note on the fridge. Hope you're okay. Talk soon. Soon never arrived. Instead I began compiling a list, not of people, but of objects they'd touched and altered. The wine opener I never used. The chipped ceramic dish I'd kept boxed. My records, once alphabetized by my hand, rearranged without care. Small violations. Erasures like fingertips across a photograph. Day 4. They told stories I didn't know and filled spaces I'd kept spare by choice. Day 10 I booked a storage unit. I moved methodically, box by box, room by room, like removing skin from something still living. The next weekend they returned. Another cousin's birthday, cake left open in the fridge, balloons in the guest room, my toothbrush gone. She called up the stairs with a bright, practiced voice. I didn't answer. I watched the front lawn through the attic vent. Even the ants outside the house seemed to know more of me than the people inside. Then came a letter folded into the spine of a book, one she never read, though I had dog-eared and underlined its pages. You pull away every time we try, it said. You act like we're strangers. Maybe we are, the note suggested, but you never let us in. I read it aloud as if reading an obituary, twice then once more. Day 13. I deleted the shared drive. Backups vanished. The calendar entries disappeared. I unplugged the hallway camera. Day 14 arrived with a quiet so complete it felt like a physical thing, a pressure that could break bone. The sun never made it to the living room. I sat in the kitchen with a mug that still smelled of cinnamon and let the hush fill the house. Then the phone exploded with calls. 105 missed rings. Panic on the other end for Raul. Abruptly they came back to a home without furniture, without pictures, without me. I left the keys in the mailbox and slipped a typed inventory inside the door. A list of what I'd taken. Nothing of obvious value, only things they hadn't noticed. The breath between words, the corners of silence, the little unshared rooms of a life. I spent a night in a motel 2 towns away, opened a box labeled before, and found the old photograph again, me with mud on my face, staring at a future that would never return the love I'd told it existed. Between the white noise of the air conditioner and another missed call blinking on my phone, something changed inside me. I smiled. Not triumphantly, not cruelly, but with a hard clarity. Family means forever. A phrase stitched to cheap glitter. But forever doesn't always include you. They never owned me, and I had never belonged to them.